Good morning, developers. If you are new to the channel, my name is Rob, and it is JavaScript Tuesday, the day that we look at the language itself. How does JavaScript work so we can become better JavaScript developers? And I had the docs open. This was the other day, MDN here, and this is the page for Boolean constructor. It's why would anybody be here? More to the point, why would anyone ever use this thing? The Boolean constructor creates Boolean objects. The example they have is so funny. It const flag equals new Boolean. That's silly to have a constant because you just should use the word false instead of the word flag. But again, why would anyone ever do that? Why wouldn't you just do this? Const flag equals false, right? And you've got your primitive stored in there as opposed to using this goofy function. Now we don't use most of the data type constructors all that often anyway, right? It's easier to just, instead of new string and then give it a word, just put the string there. But I just cracked up when I saw this. What would you ever use this for? And we scroll down a little bit here and we run into this funny line. Warning, you should rarely find yourself using Boolean as a constructor. It's in red box with a yellow line on the side and a yellow warning sign. The word warning, and that word warning is in bold. So we have 4 signs here, right? Like a big neon sign flashing. Don't use this. Don't use this. And so I thought, we'll see about that. Let's see if we can find, let's challenge this statement, see if we can find something useful. And I'm not the first person to find this. I'm also probably a little ridiculous in looking around at this funny page that probably no one else ever looks at and then deciding to challenge this statement. But this is a really great way to learn how the language works, to open up the hood and grab something you don't know how it works and try and figure it out is essentially what we're doing here. And so real quick, we're not going to do a deep dive into how the docs are organized, but MDN has references and then JavaScript. So this is the reference for JavaScript, the standard built-in objects. And let me drop that down there. Everything over here on the left-hand side under built-in objects, these are the things you use all the time, and they're not properties of another object or another thing. You can just go straight to date. You can go straight to error, eval, all of these various functions and objects and so on. They're just base parts of the language, and all the data types are in here. String, symbol, big int, we keep going back up, and then we find our friend Boolean. And if we go back down here, it says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not in the constructor. So I was looking through that stuff and found the Boolean constructor here. It says under the return value, when it's called with new, it creates a Boolean object. And the object is not a primitive, it's an object. As opposed to if you call it without new, it will coerce the parameter you give it into a Boolean. So we'll hop over to the code editor in a second. But if we did something like this, where we did const, we'll do a flag, and we will set that equal to new Boolean, and we'll pass it the number 4. If we grab a flag here, oops, you can see it created an actual object. So this is a Boolean object rather than just the basic primitive that we typically use. Instead, you do this. We'll do a flag 2 equals Boolean without the keyword new, and we'll pass it the number 4. And it spits back exactly what you'd expect, or a Boolean primitive. The concept that goes here is falsy, and I guess we can hop back over here quick. The value passed as the first parameter is converted to a Boolean value. If it's one of these, or if you don't give it anything, it will kick back false. Everything else is true. In other words, if we come over here, falsy is a JavaScript concept. If you have any of these things here, they will evaluate to false as a Boolean. So this is the stuff that we're talking about here, that when we run this constructor, which you probably never will kick back false, otherwise it'll be true. So I am over to VS Code. You can sure follow along. There's not going to be a lot here, but I've got script tags inside an HTML file. You can use Node.js if you want to. This is just a little bit more common. I've already defined an array of users, just some strings, and these could be any data types. All right, and this is common. This seems to happen all the time. This is data from an API or a database or user input. Maybe it's a CSV file. And some of the lines are empty, right? We have no data. Null and undefined are in here. And at some point in my file, I'm going to want to have a variable, we'll call it updated users, and I'm going to go to users and I'm going to map through them. We'll call the one we're on U, and we want to return U dot to uppercase, something like that. And I'll put in here some other logic. You could obviously keep this shorter, but let's console.log this when we are done, and it's going to error. And you probably can see that. Here we are. Cannot read properties of null. This is the dreaded error you get all the time. We tried to run to uppercase. It did exactly what it's supposed to on U. So each time through, it grabbed Tony, ran it, Miguel, it tried to run to uppercase on null, and you can't do that. You can't do it on undefined either. So maybe you do something like this. Maybe you use the optional chaining where we throw a question mark in there, and that will keep us intact. Indeed, it will. If I refresh, it does keep those unwanted elements in the spot, though, and I don't really want that because I'm going to have to do this every time. If we're working with this same array over and over and over, I'd really like to not have to do this. So what we can do, and I'll comment this. Well, let's comment that out, and I'll go back to the other one here like that, and I'll put a note in there. We'll have to do this every time we map through the array. And that's what I am wanting to get away from. Well, historically, what I would do is I would create something called filtered users. Okay, so say we want to eliminate the bad values. I'd set this up and I'd do users.filter. We call the one we were on U. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do this. I'm going to do it a little bit longer way. We could do if U does not equal undefined and U does not equal null, then return U. This will do exactly what we want. Filtered users now, we'll have to change it down here. So I'll swap that over there. This will get us down to exactly the stuff that we want. It removes those undefined. And now we work on filtered users the rest of the time. Well, what we can do instead is use our friend, the Boolean constructor. So I'm going to put below that, instead use our friend, the Boolean constructor, which I still think is hilarious that it even exists because it just seems so needless. But here is a use case for it. I'm going to grab this whole line right here. Const filtered users equals users.filter. We are going to hand the Boolean constructor, and we are done. That is all we have to do. It is much cleaner. Why does this work? As we hop back over, I better prove it first. Okay, I just refreshed. We get the exact same result. The reason this works is because Boolean is a function. Boolean equals a function. It's the constructor. So this is exactly the same as if we did this. I'll comment this one out. If we grab U, like we were doing before, and we pass it to Boolean, these two lines are identical. This is just a shorter hand version of it. We refresh, same thing. So the reason that this works is because we are passing a callback. And again, this is really helpful to think about it. You may see something like this and think it looks really scary, but the truth is it's just a function, and that's what we're passing anyways, is a callback to filter to run on all of our individual users. We just want to run this callback. It happens to be this goofy constructor on all of our users. We end up with a filtered user list. Now, it's important to note that if I come back up here and I drop in an empty string and the number 0 and I refresh it quick, those are not going to get included because, and I'll make that note, this will not be included with Boolean because it's Boolean logic. And remember, it's looking for falsy values, not nullish values. So what I have right here is not technically the same as what we've got down here because this is going to specifically check for non-nullish values. This is going to check for, and I guess I'll put that note in here, will check for falsy values. So please keep that in mind if you're going to use this. But I'm going to look for opportunities to use it because it's actually really slick. It cleans things up. It's very simple. And it directly defies this comment here. Thanks so much for watching. I will link another JavaScript Tuesday video. I will see you next time.